Our next genius attended film school here at City College, hoping to become a director of fiction movies. But an apprenticeship forever altered the trajectory of Stanley Nelson's film career. This is the story of a CUNY graduate who became a MacArthur Fellow and whose searing documentaries look to the past, present, and future. The 1970s in film were a groundbreaking era that saw the rise of independent filmmakers, hard-hitting socially relevant content, and new ideas and techniques.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
During this historical time in filmmaking, Stanley Nelson was at City College as a film student, and there was something else he noticed on film screens around New York City.
It was kind of the blaxploitation era, so suddenly there were films about black folks and black people were getting behind the camera, which was never an opportunity before that.
After starting in the film program at Hunter College, Stanley enrolled at the Leonard Davis Film School at City College, which had just opened.
What I wanted to do was make fiction films. Making documentary films that I ended up doing never even occurred to me. I thought documentary films were boring, and the films that they would roll into your classroom when you're in high school, and they were really boring, and somebody droning on with an English accent.
Who extracts the finished component and then repeats the process.
Nelson wrote film reviews for a City College paper, earning a parallel education to the one in class, as his press pass gave him unlimited access to theatrical films.
I remember one of my reviews said, that as African Americans and Latinx, we should try to go see Italian movies, Japanese movies, other cultures' movies, because they might have just as much to do with our lives as Hollywood. Hollywood isn't about our lives, and maybe some of these movies are closer to our lives than Hollywood.
But it was after graduation where his education and career took flight.
I lucked out and got a job with William Greaves Productions, and they did documentaries.
William Greaves was the preeminent black documentarian of his time and a graduate of City College. He made over 200 films on topics ranging from Booker T. Washington to the Harlem Renaissance.
The documentary is a very important part of the African American filmmaking experience, because you'll find that in order to get at the truth of the African American experience, you must use the documentary, because there are too many theatrical licenses that are applied to feature films that will distract you and deflect you from what the actual truth of a situation.
I saw a black man, who was supporting his family, through making documentary films, and had a business and was able to make that work. It influenced me not only in terms of my career and learning all different parts of making films, but also in the fact that it was possible to do it.
We are men! He was waking up America.
Since working with William Greaves, Stanley has produced and/or directed upwards of 55 films, covering a wide range of American stories: policing in the black community, A Buy of Harriet Tubman, the Attica prison uprising, the 1921 massacre in Tulsa. He produced, directed, and did sound on his first film, $2 in a Dream, the story of Madam C.J. Walker, in 1989.
But if it came right down to it, what she did was make it beautiful.
I'm trying to tell the story, mainly, African American stories, because that's the culture I come from. When I tell those stories, I can dive so much deeper than somebody who's parachuting in, and trying to tell a story of, the Black Panthers, or Freedom Riders.
The Black Panthers.
Black Panthers.
The Black Panther Party.
Black Panther movement.
The Black Panthers were absolutely unique.
One of the greatest interviews I ever did was I interviewed one of the Black Panthers. And he was talking about the siege that they had in LA, where the police surrounded the Black Panther office and they were shooting in, and 500 cops were surrounding the Panthers, and the Panthers were shooting back. The Panthers were running out of bullets, and they were all shot. And I said to him, how do you feel? How did you feel right? The greatest interview I ever did. I said, the question was simple. How do you feel? And he looked me in my eye and said, I felt great. I was a black man making my own way. They couldn't get in and they couldn't get out. I was the king of myself right there, okay? If he was talking to you, he would have said, well, I felt kind of good because after 400 years of being, of slavery and blah, 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 he would have had to explain all. The thing that he was saying was, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
The Black Panthers, Vanguard of the Revolution, came out in 2015. A later film, Attica, was nominated for numerous awards, including an Oscar, and won him an Outstanding Director Award from the Directors Guild of America. Nelson's use of archival footage and footage from today makes for a potent combination.
We look at archival footage as a real character in the film. All my films live in the past and the present. It's important that the films don't live in what I call a historic bubble. All of our films are looking at the past so that we can inform today.
His documentary about Miles Davis, part of PBS's American Masters series, is a good illustration of the value of digging deep for archival footage.
We were talking to a guy who was Miles's friend, and I said, well, do you have any pictures? And he said, yeah, actually, Miles said, if you got a camera, you can take some pictures of me. I don't care. Then he said, I went to UCLA and took a film class, and I bought a 16mm film camera, and I took films of Miles. And I said, oh, yeah, well, do you have them? He said, yeah, I got them in my basement. Nobody had ever seen that before.
There was a mob, looked like 1,000 people. They had these iron pipes.
They were screaming, kill them.
Finding the archival footage and matching it to the stories he chooses to tell has been Stanley Nelson's strength over almost 35 years of filmmaking. He won the MacArthur Genius Grant in 2002, was awarded the National Medal in the Humanities by President Obama in 2013, has won 3 Primetime Emmys, and was awarded a Peabody in 2015.
I wanted to tell the stories that I didn't see being told. And I think it's not only important what we put in front of the camera, but it's also important that we think about who's behind the camera. I'm trying to make films that are oftentimes about big stories, like the Black Panthers, freedom riders. I'm not trying to insert myself into the story. I'm trying to tell a story about this thing, that's there. I mean, there's a certain way I could tell it. I could tell it, I could tell my story. I could say, that, and this would be a true story. When I was 17, I went to the Black Panther office in Harlem and was about to, sign up for the Black Panthers. And then me and my friend were like, I don't think so. We're not going to do that. And I could tell it from that point of view, right? And that would be perfectly valid. But that's not the way I want to tell these stories. I think they're so much bigger than me. And I don't think that I need to insert myself into the story.
Stanley continues to direct and produce for Firelight Films. Firelight Media, a nonprofit company started with his wife, Marcia Smith, is dedicated to showcasing emerging filmmakers of color by helping to fund and produce their work through a number of programs, including the William Greaves Research and Development Fund.
There's so many more filmmakers, and there's so many more, black documentary filmmakers who are making great films. The whole idea of documentary films has just exploded. So there's just a much more of a recognition of documentary film as something that's viable, as something that people want to watch.